Jake, we closed out the show with Hype for Money in the Bank with Logan Paul and John Cena hanging out together opposite of Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. A lot of star power in that ring. It did cross my mind, is Logan Paul going to be the guy who leads to John Cena turning back babyface? When you see Logan just being so over the top, cocky and confident and full of himself. I am the face of the brand. John Cena has already said he's at the end of his career. I could see that. I don't know if that's necessarily the top for sure item we're talking about here, but I thought I'd throw it out there first. Did that cross your mind, or what do you think?
There was kind of a barely concealed disgust on John Cena's face when he was laying out all of those superlatives about Logan Paul. So, it's certainly a direction that they could go. You know, there was also that moment after the Backlash pay-per-view that where Cena was nearly in tears in response to the warm response from the audience after the show went off the air. So I think ultimately he's going to have his redemption at the end of his run. Whether it's Logan Paul or somebody else, I guess is anybody's guess. But it wouldn't be a bad choice. I think Logan would be a good option too.
Yeah, when you think about what would do it, it might be Logan. I mean, I don't want to be too specific because I think there's a whole broad array of things to go. But illustratively, it could be Logan Paul attacking R-Truth a little too viciously at some point, and Cena just being like, I don't know if I can stand for this, along with some other seeds being planted along the way. So I think there is a way to get there, and I think most people expect, I think rightfully so, that Cena will not retire as a heel, and that, again, I don't know about the retirement stip if he'll really abide by it or not. I mean, he could retire as a heel, but then come back later as a babyface, or come back as a heel and then turn babyface. I mean, it's pro wrestling. All that stuff can happen, but my hunch is the last match will be there. Let's go to Cody, though, because I think that was more relevant. Hearing from Cody about his post-WrestleMania funk, going home, drinking some whiskey, talking to a friend. Was I a good champion? Blaming himself a bit for what happened with Cena. What'd you think about Cody's performance tonight?
I think they had some wallpapering to do. He brought up the idea that John Cena gave him a choice at WrestleMania, and he did exactly what he was going to say, and Cody hesitated in the moment. Personally, I thought it made him look like a fool, and I don't know that they necessarily completely erased that from my mind quite yet. They still have some work ahead of them, but I'm glad that they at least acknowledged the fact that in ordinary circumstances, I don't think that would have worked. And so I guess I think his performance was okay, but I don't think they've completely cleared all the narrative hurdles to making me believe that he's at least back on the title track quite yet. I think he's got some more journey to go on before he gets there. I wouldn't be surprised if they wait until the fall or even towards the end of the year before Cody gets his rematch or his next title shot.
Anything else stand out from this segment for you specifically with any of the four?
I mean, it still amazes me how over the call and response stuff is with Jey Uso. I was watching on VPN on Netflix, and so I saw everything that was happening between the commercial breaks too, and that stuff continued, throughout the entire thing. So it was basically just nonstop, minute after minute after minute of the crowd engaging with him, and so. I know there's been a lot of back and forth opinion on whether or not Jay's been successful as a champion or whether he was the right guy at the right time. But I don't think it's even possible anymore to deny the fact that people just love his shtick and they're sticking with him so far.
You wonder if the second time through some of these cities, there'll be diminishing returns, but every crowd wants to be part of it. And this was a double dose. They had some time. I won't say they had time to fill. They had an overrun. I mean, we have a 3-hour show. It's going to remain 3 hours reportedly for a while. After rumors of it going back to 2 starting next week. And I mean, the crowd, they went to commercial for the first one, and then they got to at least have part of the second one before Cena interrupted, which I thought was kind of clever. To have Cena ruin the party as it before it wore out its welcome, I think, with most people in the building. Who knows about the people at home? As far as Cena's demeanor in this, you noted, maybe there was something going on as Logan was talking. What did you think about Cena talking about just what he had to say to both Jay and Cody, and that you're Cena wannabes?
I think he's talking like he was trying to convince himself more than the audience at times. And I don't know if that's a part of that arc that he's on, where eventually he won't even be able to lie to himself anymore. But that's kind of the impression that I'm starting to get when I listen to him talk. Is like it seems like he's, the gears are turning in his head and he's saying the words, but I don't even know if he believes them anymore. And so that's the part that makes it interesting, and the timing of his redemption, whenever that happens, will ultimately be decided by how quickly the fans start forcing him. I think is the point. And so yeah, I like Cena's delivery here. I think he's an accomplished actor. I think he does a better job than most on these shows of conveying things with his facial expressions and the switches in tone and things that other wrestlers may not do. And so I think he did it. He did well here. I still think my takeaway was he's starting not to believe his own BS anymore. And this is just the beginning of that story arc.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll throw a couple chat comments in here. Darrell Freeman says, good thing they let Cody stay off TV for a while and then bring him back with Jay. Both things helped him get back to where he was, kinda, because that pop was amazing. What do you think about the time Cody took off from television and then the way that he returned last Saturday?
I mean, I didn't mind taking time off. He'd been the Iron Man on the road for a long time, doing more than most in the company. And so I think he had, earned a bit of a transition time to getting back on the show post WrestleMania. The situation with coming back after taking that kind of embarrassing loss at WrestleMania and immediately demanding a tag match didn't quite land with me. There's something about it that, where it's just like, it doesn't seem like the stakes were high enough initially, but I think, they're obviously trying to save that one-on-one rematch for at some point down the road. And this is just what made sense for the moment. So, it was a little underwhelming, but I think it's just due to the context of the situation and what they're trying to preserve for something 3-6 months down the line.
Yeah. All right. Kyle Fassel in the chat, Jake says, I kind of wish Cody had more time on his own before Jay coming out. I think he should have elaborated more on his personal struggles before losing the title. Jason D in the chat adds, Cody saying next time he won't hesitate was a key line. Did Cody need more time, or do you think it worked?
I do think he needs more time. I don't know that they want to give it to him right now. I think might be the answer, is that they're saving that internal struggle for some point later down the road where they can add more detail to it, perhaps within a couple of months of when he's actually going to be challenging Cena for that title again. Because it's kind of funny, they're kind of casting the eventual Cena and Cody rematch with similar stakes to what AEW is attempting to do with Hangman Page and Moxley, where both guys are attempting to rescue the company from a guy who's been holding the title hostage. And so ultimately, I think, how the execution differs will be interesting to pay attention to, and which one's more successful in the end.
Mark Biscetti in the chat says he got a great pop, but he didn't really stay away long enough. He's walking the line of getting booed and going AEW. He put in quotes. Earlier in the show tonight, they showed a clip of Cody with Brandy Rhodes, his wife, for their Cody's podcast. And part of what they showed was a conversation about Cody being worried when he sided with WWE that the fans would boo him, which is obviously an acknowledgement of what was going on in AEW. And his wife said, of course not. This is WWE or something like that. How much is Cody on the edge of being booed?
Well, I think he's always been on the edge to me. Like, I mean, there's so many parts of Cody's personality that really shouldn't work as a babyface. Like he does have that arrogance about him. He does have that, second generation pedigree that he's always talking about. I mean, a lot of Cody's personality traits make you think, well, this would lean into him naturally being a heel. And I think it's only through sheer force of will that he's been able to prevent that from happening. He should have done it in AEW when people recognized the flaws in the way that he was presenting himself. And, we've had people essentially making the Homelander comparisons and begging for the heel turn since probably his second year back in WWE. So I think the time will eventually come where that's inevitable. But I mean, the crowd reactions don't lie. People still love the guy, and I think he's he's doing well enough at fending off the heel allegations that he can keep this going for a while longer. I think we're is it ultimately, post Cena's run, probably. I would think we're probably waiting until WrestleMania next year at the earliest before a Cody turn would even be feasible from a storytelling standpoint.
Key line from Cody was, no matter how many times I say no, the offer still stands. He made it clear in that kind of throwaway line, didn't draw a lot of attention to it, that offer is there for him, apparently. And he underlined that. So it's just something to put a pin in. Derek Hubbard says, good to see Cody back. His response from the live crowd alleviated some concern. He pandered a bit much for my taste, but it comes from a genuine place. I mean, I think enough time passed myself. But I get people being concerned about that. I mean, things were getting a little bit shaky there, but I mean, the further away you get from that, the more that is a slice of the totality of what Cody did in WWE. And just it looks like a fraction of the history that people look back on, and it lost its momentum. So I think this was enough. I think anymore, it would have been kind of weird, actually. Like what happened to the guys? And, with his podcast, I mean, he was going to be back on TV to promote that anyway. So it'd be weird to have him doing a podcast, but not addressing things on television. So I actually think the timing worked out pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think the podcast, is it next week, or I think it's sometime in June, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's within days. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's obviously going to come back to promote that. I mean, his first guest being his wife seems like a no-brainer.
What a scoop! What a scoop!
What an easy scheduling thing to work out. But ultimately, I think Cody was going to be, they were going to have him on Money in the Bank. He's going to be a major part of SummerSlam, and so they have to, get all those promotional gears turning. And so the timing worked out pretty well.
All right, Darrell says, I think Cody needed this time with Jay right now to get out that funk the Rock story, or whatever we call it, that they had him in. Being in the ring with Jay is insulating. I mean, that certainly does strategically help if they were concerned. JC Scooby 1976 says, I think should have stayed gone longer. Let's see if Derek Mitchell says, Cody Rhodes didn't start to hear those boo birds until the build up with John Cena overseas heading into WrestleMania 41. I think he's a consummate babyface and a people pleaser. And one more thing, Jason D says, something about the babyface is just standing there listening to the heels talking crap in front of them. It's happening forever in wrestling, but still. Yeah. I think it bothers some people more than it bothers me. It can be a little weird, but I mean, it's sort of like Kevin Owens says, you're not supposed to run out unless someone mentions your name. It's sort of like in wrestling. I mean, they know that they're there to listen to each other talk like this. It's not like when you have an advertised segment in the ring and people are standing there, there's sort of this understanding, it's time to hype the fight and air our issues in front of the fans because we want to sell tickets, and it's part of the hype of the game. And we each kind of, to a degree, take turns unless a line is crossed. I think that's kind of baked into the format and the formula, Jake.
Yeah, I don't think it's it's like, complaining there's too much laughing on a comedy show with the laugh track. It's just kind of part of the way that the shows are formatted and how they work. If you weren't able to get a word out without somebody punching you in the face, it would be a very boring television show to sit through and watch, because the minute anybody said something that was controversial, there'd be fists flying. And I guess that might work for some, but I think the format as it is it works, and it's been it's time tested, and so I don't know that you necessarily need to have people cutting each other off or going to violence too quickly, because it wouldn't make for very good television, honestly.
Yeah. All right, let's pause here and introduce the show and ourselves, and then we'll get back to conversation about the show. And Rivers is first up, by the way, in the caller queue. We'll bring him into the conversation, and we'll check the inbox too for email. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, May 30th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, and the host of the Wade Keller Post Shows, which is this, and the Wade Keller podcasts. The Wade Keller podcasts are available as a audio podcast format only. The red logo, that's a blue logo show. So search Wade Keller in your podcast app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any Android or iOS app. Subscribe to that. Give us a 5-star rating if you like what we're doing, please. And then a red logo show, if you search Wade Keller, that is also a audio only podcast. Most of you are listening to us in that format as we've been building up that audience for the last 15 years. But you can also join us live on YouTube if you want to be part of the live stream. We used to be on Blog Talk Radio for the longest time. Now we are live streaming on YouTube. You can find a link to each post show at in my TV reports at PWTorchVIP.com. If you're a full VIP member, we also post you can just search PWTorch in your on YouTube and find us too, right after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Brandon LeClaire hosts post pay-per-view and PLE events on our PWTorch YouTube channel, and the PWT Talks NXT gang also hosts the NXT post shows live on YouTube on Tuesdays. Those shows can be found on the PWTorch Dailycast feed. So search Wade Keller for the Wade Keller post show and podcast, and then search PWTorch for the PWTorch Dailycasts, which has a different show each day of the week. It's free. Check it out. But we are here to talk SmackDown, and I am Wade Keller, host of the show, joined by Jake Barnett from ProWrestling.net. Jake, good to have you back in the co-host chair. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. Always a pleasure to be here.
Tell people what you do with ProWrestling.net.
Well, right now I'm doing weekly live reviews of AEW Dynamite. You can catch my reports as the show airs on Wednesday evenings, and then I do a audio recap for members. I also appear with Jason Powell every Friday on the .NET Weekly audio show. We just discuss the news and information of the week, and then I also appear on members' reviews of pay-per-views for both WWE and AEW. So you can find me there.
Awesome, Jake. Appreciate it. So let's get back to conversation here about SmackDown tonight. I want to see if we have any other quick comments on on our Block A topic segment. Rock mentioned from Cody makes me think Rock is about to stick his nose in the business. When Kyle Fassel says, "Do you think Cody was talking about Triple H when he?" Regarding who he asked about being a good champion. Jake, who do you think fans are to believe that was a reference to?
I think he was saying he was talking to his friend. And so I guess, I mean, the context is wide open. You know, it could be anybody he's close to. I guess Triple H would be a good answer, but it could be Randy Orton. I guess it could be anybody who he's been associated with for a long time. Yeah,
I mean, I think it just came across like Cody was sort of generically asking friends, was I a good champion, out of sort of insecurity? I lost. I let people down. John Cena's a terrible champion, threatening to ruin pro wrestling. Was I a good champion? People are, kind of guessing DDP in the chat. Someone, Kyle Fassel joked Vince McMahon. But yeah, I think, could be Paul Levesque. It could be someone we never heard of who's just a friend of his, or somebody, could be Art Anderson. I mean, who knows? I don't know. Could be Ricky Saints, says Brock Benningfield in the chat.
True.
All right. So let's bring Rivers into the conversation here. Rivers, welcome to the show. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind about tonight's show?
Hi, I'm on earlier than usual. I didn't expect to be first, even though you gave me a heads up. Byron Saxton was interviewing Tiffy backstage. And then Naomi came up. And Byron wandered off. I want to know where you guys think he went. Not the performer, the character interviewer Byron Saxton, who just aimlessly wandered down the corridor behind them and turned a corner. I don't know why they still do this. It would be like a on-site correspondent just wandering off into the street while the camera is rolling. It's just, it's one of those things that really bugs me that's so easy to fix.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Jake, anything to say to that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, would it be weirder if he just stood there and did nothing while people were having an argument around? I guess I think it's equally, strange to just remain there staring at people while they're having a conversation that doesn't revolve around you whatsoever. So I think both choices are awkward. Maybe because he's an interviewer, it's slightly less so for him to just stand there with a microphone or whatever. But yeah, I agree. It happens all over the place in pro wrestling where an interviewer sets up a question and then people interrupt, and then it's just a free for all, and the interviewer just kind of sneaks out of frame. So I'm not a fan of it either, but it seems to be just part of the medium at this point.
It's one of those things that has become a pro wrestling thing, and it's completely separate to anything that it's supposed to be mimicking. Because obviously, like originally, you'd have Mean Gene doing like interviews, and if someone came up, he would get involved, like he was trying to keep the interview on track, and then he would throw back. Whereas somewhere we just lost that, and it was like, well, we don't need that. The point is, this person comes in, now it's just about that.
Yeah. I want to give them credit. We kind of had they mixed things up in terms of what happened going into a commercial break this week. I complained over the last week on post shows about how there was a streak going of every commercial break being after a dive at the 3-minute mark, and the wrestler who executed the dive celebrating at ringside. And this week, maybe it happened once, but I mean, they had found all kinds of creative ways to have a scene that would justify kind of breaking away to catch your breath during a commercial, whether it was a double box break or a full commercial break. So I was happy with that. There was one other trope that I thought they actually were following the Solo and Mateo and Fatu, like filming them talking. Like it felt like, oh, this would be interesting to hear what they're saying before then, they got into the back and forth. And I like the idea that they're not showing people looking at their phones anymore or showing people walking for no reason. Like there should be a presupposition for why you're filming somebody, even if something more interesting is about to elevate the segment as part of the plan. And tonight they did that with that backstage scene. So again, I wouldn't complain about things that can't be fixed or that there's no good alternative option, like Jake brought up with, is he just going to stand there in terms of Byron? But when there is a pretty easy fix, I think it ought to be done. I think it creates a more immersive experience and makes the show feel less formulaic and less, we're not even going to try hard to make it feel real. Or that there's just cameras chasing everybody around trying to film the show, but everything is all set up ahead of time. So the more they can do that, the more I think it just raises the level a little bit. Obviously they're doing good business with a bunch of bad tropes and production techniques, but why not take pride and tweak it a little to make it more realistic? So, yeah, maybe they should put some thought into what to do with the announcers when they are suddenly kind of become unnecessary and are just a fixture standing there. Rivers, anything else you want to add?
Yes. So obviously they're kind of in a weird place trying to get people to boo Cena. So I was wondering is it possible to get people at this point to buy Cena as a heel and boo Cena? Or anything that they do, such as taking things away or getting them to, would it actually reflect on the company and people just kind of take it out on the company rather than buy into Cena as a character being a heel? I thought about it because when Jay was coming out, it would have been good to have John interrupt them so the crowd didn't get to do the whole dance routine and everything. Mm-hmm. But then I was thinking people would just be angry at WWE. They wouldn't be angry at John. So I was just wondering if you guys think that is it possible to get people to be angry at John, or things that they're going to try, is it just going to make them angry at WWE for ruining them wanting to cheer John in his retirement stage?
Yeah, Jake, I mean, how is Cena and how is WWE doing? I mean, it's kind of big picture question, but we have new material to enter into evidence tonight. Was it Saturday's main event when he came out, and Cole said, I can't remember what segment it was where they said the fans like cheering him when the music hits, but then when the actual Cena comes out, then they start booing. And obviously with these like dueling chants, which again, I still feels like it's just sort of, I don't know, a perfunctory performative chant that fans just want to communally participate in once in their lives. And it doesn't really mean anything. There's not really an emotional connection. I think, and I've seen at times the same fans chant both parts of it. So, I mean, people know Cena. They don't believe he's really a bad guy. I think people believe Logan Paul's really a bad guy. So I don't know. I mean, how are they doing? It's a challenging situation. I don't think they get an A or A+, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's the initial shock of him doing the heel turn was a major moment. And I think they've spent the intervening period between then and now trying to make it appear like Cena is genuinely a heel and not a guy playing a heel on TV. And I don't know that they've accomplished that. I think you can still see and feel the guy who wants to be an inspiration and a fan favorite through the mask. And I think that's the area where they're struggling. He just doesn't come across as genuinely evil. He comes across like a guy playing a bad guy on TV. And I mean, it's a fine line to try and thread. You know, how do you make that work? I think they have to find really sympathetic characters for Cena to, you know, to do literally evil things to. That's the only what choice do they have at this point? I don't think there's anything that he can say, or you know, there's no facial expression that he could put on that would make him more genuine than he's already tried to be. And so I think it just comes down to actions, and you know, whether it's you know, attacking fan favorites. I don't think R-Truth is that guy. It's going to have to be somebody who genuinely has a lot of sympathy. And I don't know who the perfect suspect would be for something like that, but Cena has to turn that corner at some point if they want him to be taken seriously.
And I guess that's my question is, I don't even know if it's important for him to be taken seriously. And I don't know if he has it in him. I mean, it would have been nice if he showed he did. The Cena of 20 years ago or 15 years ago, maybe 10, probably not, would have had it in him. He's just so beyond like a wrestler who we can still imagine being something other than who he has become as the guy at the Oscars and the guy in these, you know, all these circumstances outside of pro wrestling. Like, it's just the idea that suddenly we're supposed to believe like that there's a way to make him believably evil in the pro wrestling realm when he's so known now outside the pro wrestling realm. I mean, it would have been nice if it happened. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been nice, but I don't know that Cena had it in him. This is who Cena is. And I mean, where have we ever seen Cena show that range? Even acting outside of WWE, he's got a cartoonish caricature face with cartoonish caricature facial expressions, and his inflection even on the reality show with Nikki, you know, when he was being romantic, I didn't take that seriously either. I mean, like, I just don't think he's like human enough in a standard way, the way, you know, and he's different. It made him a huge hero to kids because he just seemed like a cartoon character come animated into reality. But I don't know that I think they need it. I don't even know that they're really in search of it, and I'm okay with it. I'm not as bothered by some people by it. It's working to the degree that they're getting a heel run out of John Cena, you know, going after you know, R-Truth, and you know, as Mark Boschetti said, the R-Truth match on SNME was a lot. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Jake, as far as that argument goes? I mean, are we aspiring and holding Cena to a standard that he's not capable of? And it might actually be worse if he tried to suddenly be serious, because then he'd be trying to do something maybe he just isn't actually physically capable of doing as an actor.
Yeah, I think he's taken some bigger swings in some of his Hollywood roles. You know, you know, if the reality show is any indication of who the guy is off camera, which I'm not necessarily certain that it is, it does seem like he's somebody who has a narrower bandwidth of emotional output, where maybe he's not comfortable with that level of vulnerability or whatever the case may be. It doesn't seem like he's emoting on a level, like you said, that comes across as relatable or human to the degree of where he could be a convincing, you know, evil character. And so I think he's, you know, he does better with facial expressions than some, but it's certainly not enough to overcome a 20-year career of being, you know, a Superman analog, more or less. You know, he's not going to get people to change their opinion of him overnight. And I don't even know if a year was a reasonable enough amount of time to think they could get that done. I mean, it was shocking in the moment, but it certainly hasn't played out in a way where you're like, oh, this was an obvious choice.
Standard Deviation, by the way, says, to me, Cena's always come across like he studied and rehearsed every single mannerism necessary to somewhat blend in as a normal member of society. So, yeah. And Brock Benningfield just adds, Batista's become the best actor of them all. Yeah, I'm not going to get too much argument there. Okay. Rivers, back to you.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that it doesn't ultimately matter. But my whole thing, they clearly misread the room. At the only time in history people wanted to cheer John Cena, they decided to turn him heel. And now I think even if they get him to do some like heinous stuff and say some heinous stuff, it would be like a TV character that everyone really likes and enjoys. And then the writers get them to do some messed up stuff. You wouldn't be mad at the character. You'd be mad at the writers for making your character do that. And you may say that that's like too insider and I'm reading too much into it. But if there's a Netflix TV show about the writers, then they've opened the door to kind of that sort of criticism and people thinking more about the writing. So, yeah, I think it's an uphill battle, but you're probably right. Doesn't ultimately matter. Final question, Jeff Cobb. We've seen him for a couple of weeks now. I thought they did him dirty the first week when they made him wrestle in street clothes, and I didn't think he looked good. What are your guys' gut reactions? I know we haven't seen much of just his ceiling and where you see him in a year's time. I will hang up now and I'll listen to your answer. Thanks,
Rivers. Appreciate it. Good topics. Yeah. What do you think, Jake?
I'm assuming he was wrestling in street gear because he didn't have any gear that had the new name on it. I think most of his gear had like Jeff Cobb on it in some variety or another, and maybe it just wasn't ready yet. I don't know that for certain, but that seems like a plausible explanation. And in terms of his ceiling, I mean, he seems kind of like a hired goon in terms of his character, right? Like I don't know that he has. I mean, we were just talking about range with Cena, and I think you're talking about an even narrower range of character choices with somebody like Jeff Cobb or JC Mateo. So I see him being somebody who could be valuable in the mid card, but until he really opens up and you see more from a character perspective, I think he's just kind of where he's going to be. I don't know that there's a much higher ceiling for him at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's about right. I mean, this is not like they signed Ospreay or Okada. I mean, it's Jeff Cobb, I mean, and I think they're using him in a spot that people who've seen Jeff Cobb would make sense for him to be in. I think it's actually a good role for him. And I think he has a little more credibility than Solo Sikoa right now. Has been kind of jobbed out. He can be an opponent that Jacob Fatu plows through. He carries himself like he's tough, but I don't, people who've watched Jeff Cobb's career, I don't, again, he wasn't, it's not like an Okada Ospreay signing. He's not Kenny Omega. It's just, he's fine as in this role. He didn't look great the first week. Derek Hubbard says Cobb looked better tonight. My main takeaway is I'm thankful that Bronson Reed was chosen to be in Seth's faction rather than Cobb. Bronson has a presence. Cobb does not. He has nice moves. Kyle Fessel said, I like Jeff Cobb a lot. I think he'll end up in a good spot. And Mark Peschetti said, I'll take this Cobb over the now Okada any day. Sadler version 3 says, Cobb was basically a mid-carder in New Japan. I don't know if people were expecting him to be a top guy, but that isn't going to happen. He's a good hand. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just because you've heard of him and he's in Japan and he had some good matches and, had some good showings, it doesn't mean that you should judge him at a standard that nobody else was expecting him to exceed. All right, let's go ahead and bring Jason D from Australia into the conversation here. Jason D, welcome. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Wade and Jake. Thought it was an interesting show today. Just to clarify what I was talking about, the babyface is not a massive point, but it kind of is for me. Just the babyface just standing there taking it from the heels. What I meant when it happens when there's multiple people in the ring, but with CM Punk, McIntyre, even LA Knight, if you know a heel's going to come out there and talk a long time, as I must have known Logan Paul was going to do that, there is a way to sort of just move to the side and indicate with your body language that this guy's going to go on forever, and I'm going to allow him to go on forever, but I'm in control of the situation. Like we've seen that with Drew, like he'll sort of put his feet up on the ropes. LA Knight, CM Punk, they have this more relaxed type of feel to them. If they know someone's going to take a long time to rip and talk crap, it's like they're saying to the audience, I'm in control of the situation and I'm letting them talk that way. So for me, with Jay and Cody just standing there looking rather tense, which Jay kind of always does all the time, when the heel is ripping on him, he has this sort of tense look on his face, like he has some type of internal struggle on how to think about what they're saying. To me, it's like, why don't you just punch the guy in the face? Because Logan went on and on and on. And Cena comes out there, directly rips on Cody, calls Jay lazy, and they're just standing there and taking it. I would have preferred if once Logan starts talking, both of them look at each other, just say, fine. One goes to one turnbuckle, the other one goes to the other and say what you got to say, Logan, get it off your chest, but we're in control and we're allowing you to do it.
Mhm.
And I don't like Logan. I never like it when somebody's cutting a promo on someone and they turn their back. And Logan turned their back on them a few times. And that's just like, how do you know they're not going to attack you? Or I don't know. It's just there's something about that presentation that can be tightened up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. The idea that it's part of the format and the wrestlers kind of know we're here to promote a match and listen to each other talk. But, you know, I did say, but then when a line is crossed, you know, you go to that, then, you know, baby faces need to step up, or a, you know, vicious heel who isn't going to stand there and take it. It hurts their credibility if they stand there and take it. So I think it's something for WWE to pay a little extra attention to and be cognizant of what you're saying. Is there a way? You know, sometimes when you draw attention to it in the way that you just said, Jason, like, well, the baby faces will step back and say, we're going to listen. It's your time, as a way to sort of say they're agreeing to not do anything while the heel talks, but also establish we're in control. We're allowing it.
Yes.
I like that. And then there's also a little part of me that says, and I feel this way sometimes even about some of my critiques is if you draw like to me, matches, and when there aren't overruns on a TV show, AEW always goes, we're going to stay with this match as long as we need to. And then, you know, there happen to be overruns. But when there isn't an overrun and you say that, and the match ends just perfectly in time, 19 out of 20 weeks, it's sort of like, oh, that's right. We have to just forget that, you know, that we know it's going to end, you know, within a minute or 3 minutes of the top of the hour every time. What are the odds? But if they draw attention to it by talking, we'll stick with this match as much as we need, but there's never an overrun, which actually isn't a problem at all for WWE now, because SmackDown has overruns and Netflix has a soft out. But historically speaking, and Dynamite runs over, but historically speaking, by trying to create a reason for it, you might draw attention to something that people have just sort of become numb to and don't care about. So I'm always kind of balancing that. But I say that as almost just more of a devil's advocate thing. I think being cognizant of it and when it's convenient, doing something a little extra, like you suggested, would be a good thing. And I don't think they're thinking of it right now. Jake, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think, you know, another potential fix would just be adding more variety where, you know, sometimes you do have crosstalk, or sometimes you do have somebody assault someone the first time they say something critical about them, and other times they back into the turnbuckle or roll their eyes or give you some other indication other than verbally that they're, you know, they're acknowledging that this is going on too long and that they're going to do something about it, but to, you know, to assert control. So it's become a trope and it's become a formula because everybody just kind of follows the same pattern of behavior, and the only way to, you know, to fix that is to change the behavior pattern so it's a bit more unpredictable than it is now.
I think if you had Cody getting mad and Jay holding it back, or Jay getting mad and Cody holding it back, you could say, well, one person has a shorter fuse than the other. The other's like, no, now's not the time to fight. You know, sometimes they say the wrestlers have agreed to no physicality. Or they have security in the ring to keep them apart, or they have a GM standing there going, you will be suspended if you hit each other. So there actually is a bit of a variety already, Jason, in what they do, but, you know, I think points made.
Yeah, I know you understand what I'm saying here. It's just when Cena comes out here and directly says something to Cody insulting and then calls Jay lazy and they don't reply to it, I don't know. That is because Cena can come across very strong in his criticism. And in relation to Cena's character, I don't see him as being an evil heel. Like, he's not evil. He's trying to prove a point to this generation that they can't measure up to him. That's more about him feeling more entitled and proud about who he is. And, you know, and insecurity, I think, as you mentioned, Jake, that's where it's coming from. I'm not necessarily looking for an evil Cena, but again, something to look at. The match with R-Truth, a moment of hesitation, but then he said, no, there's no hesitation. But he teased it, and this tease of dissension with Logan Paul. I think they are dropping strategic hints that eventually something's going to happen with Cena where he's going to make that full turn. So bit by bit, I think they're laying the groundwork for that. Little breadcrumbs. Yeah. What else, Jason? Damian Priest, I thought he cut a really strong promo tonight. Thought he addressed what he had to say regarding Drew. I put him in the rearview mirror. I know some people had criticisms about him just walking out the door, including Jesse Ventura. That was funny, them trying to defend it. But storyline wise, I get it. Drew McIntyre walking out on Drew McIntyre and putting that behind him. It's the symbolism of it. He didn't have to pin him. it's the symbolism of him walking away from him and putting him behind. Now he's an opponent, an apparent opponent for Jacob Fatu. For me, that's going to be an interesting matchup because obviously they've built up Damian Priest to be, a bit of a street fighter that he can dish out the violence and also take it. That's an intriguing battle for me. So, do we see Damian Priest winning the title, or is this going to be someone for Jacob Fatu to eventually get over, as in win himself?
Jake,
I think it would probably be both at some point. If ultimately you want Jacob Fatu to move up the card, or I guess, I'm assuming we have some sort of draft coming sooner or later, where you might be able to move people across shows, and that gives you an opportunity to end feuds quickly that would otherwise go for a couple of months. And so maybe it would be a one match thing, but I don't know. I think, they've cast Damian Priest as somebody who is capable of being a world champion. And I think they want Fatu in that category too. And my gut feeling at this point is that Jacob Fatu is hotter than Damian Priest. And so I would probably put Fatu over in that feud. Maybe you have Damian Priest steal a win at some point, or he can maintain his credibility. But I don't see Damian Priest as a guy that I would put out in front of Jacob Fatu and come away on with a victory in a feud and move up the card or hold that championship. So I maybe I'm too high on Fatu or more higher on Fatu than others, but I see Priest as a solid, a guy who can be in that upper mid card and occasionally make appearances in main events, but he doesn't scream like a guy who's going to be leading the company at any point in the near future. So I think Fatu does have that potential as a ceiling, whereas he doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought it was noteworthy. He said at least he got the Drew the Warrior, not Drew who hides behind his phone, typing insults. I don't know if that's laying the groundwork for Drew turning babyface, or is just Priest going, hey, I beat the guy who is the toughest version of that guy to give himself a little extra credit. Priest is good. I mean, he knows who he is. He carries himself well. He's had a good year plus now. And I think, like Jake said, I think he's in a good spot, but Fatu should beat him. Anything else, Jason?
So who do you guys have now favorite to win the women's and the men's Money in the Bank? For me, in the women, I've got Naomi as a favorite. In the men, it's a bit tricky with this one. I'm not really sure, because I initially thought it would be Sami Zayn due to the story they could tell potentially with Jay. But now that he's out of it, I guess the smart money would be on Seth. But
is he though? Like, that's the thing. Like, they have no more announced qualifiers coming up for either the men's or the women's match, and they have one spot to fill in both. So we could be getting one of those last chance style matches where somebody like a Sami Zayn could kind of sneak in the back door at the end here, and he would still be a favorite in my opinion if he were to qualify. Yeah,
I don't know either way, but the lay of the land leaves that door open for sure, and it's crossed my mind. I mean, I've mentioned it in passing. There could be some last chance thing, and it just makes sense for Sami to be in this because it's a good story for him. Jason?
And just Giulia's promo, I thought it was interesting. Like, I'm a big fan of hers from what I saw in NXT and the potential with her, but the content of her promo talking about she's not being generic and talking about being the best, like she wants to be sort of undeniable, that you can't dispute me, I guess, in a way. I'm trying to make sense of what they're trying to say with that, because I know saying that I want to be the best is kind of generic and everyone does say that, but shouldn't that actually be your goal, even though it is sort of generic in a way and everyone says it? I'm interested to see where they go with her. And they said, it doesn't matter whether you cheer or boo me. So is she going to be somewhat of a muddled character, I guess, that we don't know what to make of her? I'm intrigued to see how they push her.
Jake, I was more okay with the promo. I thought it kind of established. I mean, for people who don't know anything about her, it established. I mean, what you can. I mean, they put captions on there to help. But every person I see is a victim. I like I see you, but even more, I see the belt. I don't know. She just kind of came across as a very brashly confident badass who thinks very highly of herself and is willing to put it out there confidently. Jake.
Yeah, I mean, she's clearly not a straightforward babyface or heel. She's sort of ruthlessly pursuing, I guess, what she's calling legacy building, or she's not so much interested in being a fan favorite. She doesn't care if she gets booed. She just wants to become legendary, where people recognize her and remember her more so than anything else. And so, was it an absolute home run of a promo? I wouldn't say that. I think it's a good foundation for to build upon for her. And I guess I came away at least slightly relieved that her English continues to improve, and I think that's going to be the key to to her maintaining a push long term, because the company relies heavily on people in those title match situations to go out to the ring and at least talk for a couple of minutes on a week-to-week basis.
Yep. Jason, anything else?
No, that's it. I'm going to take a wait and see. I'm going to take a wait and see approach with her to see how they push her and what. But I would like to see her personally as someone who just dominates and just kind of like an assassin type of role, that type of thing, where she's just dominating people. So, the beautiful madness, that they've got something there with her. She's got a great look. I'm just intrigued to see where they go, but I'll leave it at that. All right, thanks, guys.
You bet. Thanks. By the way, chat room said, Derek Mitchell says this Monday, the last Money in the Bank qualifier is announced. It's Punk, AJ Styles, and El Grande Americano. Ryan Solorio says the women's final qualifier is Stephanie Bakir and Liv and Ivy. So I hadn't seen that or remembered that. So there you have it. Thanks, chat room. All right, let's bring. You know what? One thing. We just talked about Bakir, and not Giulia, and a couple comments in the chat, and then we'll get to Ian. Standard Deviation said it was smart to put Giulia's name on the screen so people learn the spelling. I like when Giulia says, this is Ryan Solorio, I like when Giulia said that everyone says they want to be the best. She just wants to be undeniable. I don't know exactly what that means, but it's fine. I'm not offended by it. Kyle Fessel said Giulia doesn't impress. But Sadler Vision 3 says Giulia's promo was better than I expected. Her English was very good. So there's a mix of opinions on her there. Okay, let's go to Ian in Tennessee. Longtime caller, going back to our Block Talk days. He was at the show tonight. Ian, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for calling. Please pay attention to driving before worrying about our show. First and foremost, you pay attention to driving. Don't worry about eye contact. So it seemed like a very big crowd, and they were enthusiastic and liked what they saw. Tell us what stood out to you, having attended a lot of shows there.
Yeah, I mean, I spent about an hour in the merch line, so that was pretty awesome before the show got started. Big crowd, a lot of big moments, a lot of loud cheers, a lot of heavy boos to some stuff that was placed on the screen during commercials, so that was fun. But yeah, all in all, I mean, it was a 10 out of 10 show in my personal opinion.
So who got the biggest babyface pops of the night? Who was most over?
I mean, Cody, obviously. Jay was a surprise. He was not marketed, so that was a big pop. To be completely honest, also Damian Priest got one heck of a loud pop when he showed up on the screen when he came out live.
Wow. Talk about the Cena reaction and how you feel the fans feel about him, for lack of a better term.
I mean, obviously, the crowd was 50-50 with the Cena rocks, Cena sucks chant. We were kind of, during the Cody promo, we were kind of waiting for Cena to show up. Obviously, he got the kind of the heavier reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I mean, when he came out, obviously it was a lot of cheering. And then when he actually showed up and wasn't doing his typical Cena movements, he got a lot of heel heat. Obviously, Logan Paul came out. That was unexpected as well. So, obviously, I mean, a lot of people were cheering for Logan in my section, but obviously the crowd was mostly booing towards that.
Jake, jump in with a question for Ian.
Yeah, I guess I watched on VPN on Netflix, so I was seeing the stuff between the commercial breaks, and it seemed like there was I guess a considerable reaction for Jey Uso. Would you say he was in terms of crowd, call and response, was he the biggest reaction of the night in terms of sustained reaction over the longest period of time?
Yeah. He, like I said earlier, he was not marketed, so when he came out, obviously everyone lost their mind. We probably were doing the Yeet dance for about 3 to 5 minutes. So, I mean, that was obviously a blast.
Talk about the opening segment with Bianca Belair, hometown wrestler, Jade Cargill, Naomi, a lot of moving parts there. We have not addressed that yet. It's sort of recency bias, I guess. But that was a big segment. Naomi gave a shot to try to befriend Belair. Belair wasn't buying it, so Naomi just went after her mom. What'd you think?
Yeah, so she came out, obviously got a big pop. When Naomi first came out, I don't know if it came across on TV, but we could not hear her mic at first. So it's kind of hard to understand what she was saying. But once the crowd kind of settled down and we could actually hear the give and take, it was a great segment. Cargill got a decent pop because I wasn't expecting them to go that through the triple threat. So, and we actually didn't know who that was front row because when her entrance, she went and hugged someone, so we didn't know who it was at first.
But the context was there to figure it out, or did they bring it up? Because the announcers did, and it was apparent to the viewers, I think.
Yeah, once she mentioned, your mom in a wheelchair, and everyone kind of looked towards the front row. We saw someone in a wheelchair. We're like, oh, yeah, there's her mom.
Was there any hesitation in terms of who got cheered? I mean, Belair hometown, total babyface. It just seems like they would be far and away in favor of her. Was there any kind of pushback against that, or did it just flow the way that the story presented itself?
It flowed the way the story presented itself. Obviously, as fans, we're trying to kind of push Bianca heel. In my opinion, I think she'd be great as a heel for a while, but obviously, hometown favorite, she's going to get cheered out of the building. So,
yeah. Well, with the Cargill Nia Jax Naomi match, we haven't talked about that. I'll throw to Jake first. Did you like that match? And then I want to get Ian's thoughts on the crowd investment in it.
Yeah, I thought they did a decent job. I mean, it didn't, it's not memorable enough that I'm going to be thinking about it next week or anything. But in terms of the Money in the Bank qualifiers go, they did a passable job. I thought the way the finish worked out was clever, and I continue to be impressed by Naomi in particular for her character work. I think she's really taken some chances with this current character, changed up her look, changed up her mannerisms. Even her vocal delivery is different, and so I was happy to see her qualify and get the win. And I think she could be a favorite. I think there's plenty of good reasons to go with her in that position at this point.
Ian, talk about the crowd reaction to that match.
Yeah, crowd reaction. We were kind of trying to settle down after the opening segment, but yeah, I mean, I think that match probably, in my opinion, was the second best match of the night. The crowd was mostly rooting for Jade, but a lot of people were kind of getting the heat on Naomi, and Naomi was playing to the crowd a lot during commercial breaks. So I think the crowd was invested in throughout the whole match.
Okay. R-Truth, how over was he relative to everybody else on the show?
Oh, I mean, he was out there for a while before the match started, so he was getting the crowd going as well. But, I mean, anytime you see R-Truth on the screen, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. As far as the Street Profits cutting a promo and all the tag teams coming out, was the crowd invested in that? It's a little murky in terms of like a normal wrestling formula. It's clear here's one or two people we like, one or two people we don't like. In this case, you sort of had to pick and choose. DIY were clear cut heels and got booed. But are you happy with the Prophets yelling at Fraxium, yelling at Machine Guns. How did that dynamic work in front of that live crowd?
So I personally don't like Street Profits. I've been wanting them to get pushed apart for a while. But yeah, I mean, the crowd was kind of out of it. I think the crowd at that point, they were wanting Wyatt Six more than anything in that whole segment. So we're like, okay, now our city's out there. Obviously, DIY is going to come out. Obviously, Fraxium's going to come out. And so when the Wyatt Six came out, they got a really loud pop. It was kind of like, the light went out for like 5 seconds, and then you're kind of like, oh, they're right there. Like, we were expecting them to have a full entrance. So when the blackout happened, you're kind of trying to figure out where everyone was. But yeah, that was a really awesome segment.
Cool. Jake, do you want to jump into another question?
I'm trying to think. I guess you mentioned that the women's triple threat was your second favorite match of the day. What ended up being your favorite match out of the ones you saw?
Favorite match was the men's. I think obviously Fatu is going to be a future world champion in my opinion. So everyone just wanting him to get pushed away from Solo. But that match, I think it went on a little bit too long in my personal opinion, but everything flowed together so well. Like, the crowd was wanting tables throughout the whole match. So, like, Mello playing to the crowd, getting a table out for like 2 seconds, then pushing it back under was great. But yeah, everything in that. I'm a big Carmelo Hayes fan. I'm a big Andrade fan. So everyone, I think, just meshed together so well in that match.
Very good. The athleticism of Rey Fenix and Javon Evans was amazing. They have some overlap to their style, but there's distinct things about each of them. How much did the crowd get into that?
You cut out. What was it?
How into Javon Evans and Rey Fenix's athleticism did the crowd get?
Oh, yeah. Like, that was another match I did not know was going to happen, and so I love Javon Evans and Rey Fenix together. I think everyone was kind of blown away by how good they are in the ring and how good they are just in general. So I think a lot of people were kind of surprised with how well that match actually went and how well they worked together.
Very cool. Anything else you want to share with us, like anything with Chelsea Green at ringside or things that appeared on the video screen that fans might have reacted to? Anything else we didn't cover that comes to mind?
They were promoting a documentary. They were kind of like, it was Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, so Hulk Hogan got booed as well. I don't remember what the documentary was. It was back from like the 80s or 90s where they were filming. I don't know who the ring announcer was, but he was trying to, I think a lot of the crowd was kind of just ready for like the next segment, next match. But all in all, like the show, the atmosphere, anytime I get a chance to go to WWE Live, I'm going to go. Because just going there live is just an absolute blast to go to.
Is there anything different about this crowd tonight than past crowds? In terms of their enthusiasm for the product, the way they react, would something about the crowd engagement and how they interacted with the show and reacted to it surprise you if this crowd had been dropped into the building 15 years ago?
WWE now, they're aiming more towards, like family friendly stuff, I think. But I saw a lot of families. Saw a lot of younger kids who were wearing, Cody Rhodes, Cena, Jey Uso, LA Knight. But yeah, I think, the crowd was just on fire because they hadn't been to Knoxville in, gosh, I don't know how many years. And obviously, Cena's a big draw. That was my first time seeing Cena in probably 11 years. So, but all in all, like I've said before, the crowd was just blown away. I don't think I've heard a crowd that loud since I was at Bad Blood in October.
Ian, thank you. Cool thoughts. Yeah. Anything off air happen? Any dark match or anything else maybe I forgot?
they did one main event match. Was Mishin and Candice LeRae. So that was a good kind of filler match. And then they did a speed match of someone from Pretty Deadly against Berto. So I actually got to see Berto wrestle twice tonight. So that's pretty interesting.
Who won each of those matches? Spoiler alert.
Candice LeRae won the main event match with a roll-up, and then Berto beat the guy from Pretty Deadly.
All right, cool. Thanks, Ian. Always good hearing from you.
Thank you.
You bet. Take care. All right. A couple comments in the chat about Naomi in particular I want to get back to here. Chris Johnson said, the dumbest part of the show was Naomi claiming to go into Bianca's parents' house. Other than that, I was pretty positive overall on the show. The idea that they were close and she might have known how to get in, she might have known where the key's hidden or the code or something. I mean, I guess you're supposed to believe that, not that she broke glass and barged in. This wasn't Hangman Page and Swerve or anything like that. Hangman Page's house. So, I mean, I don't know. Obviously I heard that. I'm like, okay, where's this going? And it was more just sort of taunting her with the access that she has because she knows how to get in. I don't know. Was that needed, Jake? Did it bother you?
I don't know that it bothered me. You're supposed to think she's crazy, right? Like she's a stalker. She's going to show up to your house. I think that's the overall vibe of the character, is that this is a very unstable person who will do things outside of societal norms to try to get what she wants. And as soon as it was obvious that Bianca was not going to to play ball with her, she flipped the script and was suddenly much more what do you call it, sociopathic maybe. Like she came across like somebody who doesn't really have any sort of connection to the real world. And so I thought it worked fine. Breaking and entering is not completely outside the realm of possibility for somebody who's as disturbed as the Naomi character. So it didn't come across to me as ridiculous as it did to some others.
A couple other comments here. Kyle Fassel said, Naomi's doing the best work of her career. I agree with that. Loved her crying and then acting crazy shortly thereafter, for sure. Kyle adds, I didn't love the breaking and entering part. Should have at least had a cell phone video to go along with something. Just seemed like an odd thing to casually mention. Although, I mean, they might have come up with it and not wanted to actually film it or didn't have time to film it. They decided it'd be kind of fun for her to mention casually that she went in and looked at some photos, and it just, it comes across as crazy. Standard Deviation said, I'm enjoying Naomi's descent into madness. Her breaking into Bianca's family home feels less serious when she merely tells us about it rather than showing footage. Bianca's mother smiling was funny. Derek Mitchell said, I typically agree when you see other wrestling home invasion angles, they all had a camera crew or cell phone footage. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it didn't bother me that they didn't have it. And in a way, a wrestler who breaks and enters might just be, if the photo album's in a different, I might have left it on the table open. I don't know that we need to see it. It's sometimes it's like a horror movie. Leaving a monster to your imagination sometimes is better.
I don't know. I mean, should you film your crimes? Like,
right.
What is the, I guess it came across as just, she's just casually insane, right? Like, you were at my house. Like, what are you talking about? So it worked for me. I mean, I obviously, if you would prefer to see footage of it, I guess that's just kind of a difference of opinion, but I thought it worked in the context of what they were trying to do.
And if they did come up with it, but didn't have time to film it, I don't think it's like disqualifying, where they're like, well, we can't have her say that unless she has evidence or proof of it. I just don't think that's essential to this working. Ryan Solario says, Naomi going from sympathetic to crazy was wild. Yeah, I love that she made this case, and when it didn't work, so that she just completely lost it. And as Standard Deviation said, Naomi presumably has been to her house before as well. So anyway, Jake, anything else on the show in particular stand out to you? We ran down a lot with Ian, so it doesn't mean I don't want to hear from you on some of these things. We had the stuff with the tag teams. By the way, I have to say this as a throw to you. I really love that Montez Ford did not go into his mannerisms, the weird inflections that he always does. He was more sinister and more, sinister. He was more grounded and credible to me. He was more compelling not being cartoonish. And I just like, I was happy with that. I thought that's a cool, he was soft spoken and, not heelish, but also not just trying to be all entertaining in a way that I just think feels sort of beneath him at this stage of his career and at his age almost. Jake.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, like, I don't know, like carnival barker aspects to his character a lot of the time that it was nice to see him dispense with. It's always interesting to watch someone sort of in real time learn the value of when to be quiet and when to be loud and when to go over the top with your emotional outbursts and when to withdraw. And so, it's a good thing for him. I guess on the tag team front, I mean, the Wyatt Six coming in and immediately sort of taking the bulk of the attention away from the rest of the division feels like kind of a shame to me, because I feel like they had a pretty good groove developing between some of the other teams, and it feels like that's mostly been stomped out at this point, because you felt the crowd anticipating the appearance of the Wyatts throughout that entire segment, and they didn't really come to life until they did. And that was a bit of a bummer. And I guess on other topics elsewhere in the show, the men's Money in the Bank qualifier was obviously I think, he was correct. It was probably the best match on the show. But I think it could have been a few beats shorter. I don't know that
we got
to go on.
Two commercial breaks. It was a commercial break match. Yeah. I mean, that's the case on a 3-hour SmackDown. That, that's what we get sometimes.
Right. And I think that's just a casualty of the scheduling, but it did, you went that long, 2 commercial breaks, and then you still have this sort of screwy finish that results, that basically boils down to distractions and interference. And so it feels a bit like a bit unsatisfying, I guess would be my conclusion there, where it's like, don't take up that much of my time and then just give me a cop-out finish. I'm not a fan of that style of match. It happens way too often, in WWE in particular.
Are they doing a good job caring for Jacob Fatu's character if he is on the rise and a potential top guy?
I think I guess preponderance of the evidence is that they are going out of their way to care for him most of the time. But there have been a number of occasions where I've been critical of them for not having him put away opponents quickly enough. Like I feel like he's having far too many, 50-50 or even 60-40 matches that go 10, 12, 15 minutes with opponents that you would feel like he should buzzsaw through. And so, I mean, if they really want him to, rocket to the top and be a guy who, who is seen as somebody who can dethrone world champions, he shouldn't be having, going 15 minutes with mid-carders every week on TV. Unfortunately, that seems to be their MO right now, because they're filling 3 hours of television on SmackDown.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. I mean, you can't give everyone the Goldberg treatment, where they just, don't sell and plow through everybody and they're undefeated. Because, at some point you got to have a match, and he can. But I understand, like, there's money to be made with the indestructible guy who doesn't lose and plows through people and wins quickly. And they did sacrifice that in order to have him be more of a back and forth in the mix guy. I will say, unlike, say, Goldberg, he has more range to succeed as a guy who's sort of in the mix rather than standing outside of it with people just bouncing off of him and him squashing people. I think he'll be fine, but I understand the sense of lost opportunity or defining him down a little bit, but they have a lot of TV time to fill. He's good in the ring, and they like to tell their stories of people who are in the ring longer than, Goldberg used to be. So yeah, I mean, I've had mixed feelings on that. Overall, I'm good with where he is, though.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It's more, I think 8-10 minute matches can accomplish just as much as they tend to stretch out into a 15 or 15 plus minute match sometimes, particularly with some of these long TV matches in the 3 hour format, where it's just like, this is dragging now. Let's wrap it up. I think that happens more often than not when you're talking about some of these mid-card matches that take up the bulk of television time.
How about the Wyatt Six? Chris Johnson said, I was excited for the Wyatt Six. I'm over that now, not interested. Has too much time gone by, Jake? Should they have done more to reintroduce them? Because it's sort of like they didn't skip a beat. It's like there was no pause. There was no explanation. We have Uncle Howdy just saying, we have to, what do you say? We have to, someone to pay back or something like that. It was kind of hard to make out what he said, but so many questions. We need answers, Barrett said about them. And then later on, he said they're going to get what they're owed. We don't need a ton of people doing cryptic promos. I'm for none most of the time. At least Aleister Black's not doing it. Rusev seems past that now. So I don't know. Yeah, your thoughts on the state of the Wyatt Six and how they've been reintroduced. They just, picking up where they left off. Like they were never gone.
Yeah, I think they probably needed a bit of a reintroduction in a sense of, okay, let's illustrate what the mission statement is and then, send them out after people. I think when you take as much time off as they did, and it's unfortunate, that injuries put them in that position. But I think the audience is quick to move on. And so, you come back and you kind of have to earn back the trust and earn back the ability to go out there and tell the stories that they want to tell with them. And I really don't know what that is. I don't think they did a great job of defining what exactly their goals were the first time around. And I was hoping to see more of that, on their way back in, whether it was in vignettes or interviews or whatever the case may be. I think they had something interesting going on with Uncle Howdy in particular that largely has been dropped now. And he just kind of feels like another character on the show, which I think is the mistake because you've kind of killed the mystique of what they were trying to do with him.
Brock Benningfield, sometimes when an act gets cooled off, they can't get that support back. Bloom is off the rose. Unfortunate. Standard Deviation said the Wyatt Six sounds like a band who tried to replace their lead singer with a lookalike who has an eerily similar voice, but is clearly lesser than. Perhaps a completely different voice would be better. Kyle Fassel said the highest point was their initial debut. Ever since then, it's been a descent. I still have belief in Bo Dallas being, compelling, but I don't, the sound effects and spooky voice stuff, I don't know that we need as much. He has kind of a distinct raspy voice that's actually different than Bray, that they could lean into. My argument has been all along, but especially now, is let's get a sense of who these other characters are. They're not just, random wrestler. They have names, but they've done nothing since the very initial introduction of the characters one at a time, who they are and what their specialty is, what their mindset is, what their dynamic is, where they come from. I think that can make things more interesting, and they just don't seem interested in that. And they got 3 hours. Why not give us a little something? I mean, I don't know what the context or framing of it would be, but I do think people want something a little bit different from Bo Dallas than a short vignette and him looking like a derivative of his late brother. I think having him introduce each of his characters and be more of a faction leader who speaks and talks about he plays this role, she plays this role, he plays this role, he does this for me. I don't know. I think there's more there.
I think the initial pitch for this character and in this faction was, a lot of it was sort of built around the idea of Bo Dallas having this intense grief that he was dealing with in his life and the effect that it had on his character and these other sort of lost souls that he had collected and put together, sort of, the island of misfit toys, so to speak, where people who were struggling and needed, somebody to be their leader. And so we don't know enough about who Bo Dallas is now. They've been gone for months. Has his perspective on anything changed? And who are these surrounding characters that that are supposed to round out this faction? So they have a lot of work ahead of them if they want that to be memorable again.
Sadler version 3 says Bo plays a part very well, in my opinion. Yeah. Kyle Fassel said there's potential all around for sure. Just not feeling optimistic about where they're going, and I think that's fair. Derek Mitchell says, I just hope the Wyatt Six doesn't become a tribute band and can do something of significance. So we'll stay tuned. We shall see. But yeah, I'm with Kyle. I mean, I'm not optimistic, but I don't know. Can I be not optimistic, but also hopeful? Like I hope, even if I wouldn't put money on it, that maybe we'll get somewhere. There's tension between a couple pairs of people I want to cover here, and then that might be it, unless the chat has any other topics they want to bring up, or you do, Jake. Miz and Carmella, a little more tension this time. Miz saying, I got you this match. I could have been in the qualifier. You were. I'm the reason you're there. If you win Money in the Bank, it's we. And Hayes says, what do you mean that we will be Money in the Bank? What do you mean by we? That's when Miz kind of went off on him. And he said he is him and Miz never will be. And Hayes wanted him to say Mello don't Miz together, and Miz refrained and kind of gritted his teeth. He didn't like Carmelo talking back at him and not agreeing that he was the reason he was successful. So, we're seeing the progress of this storyline. How has this worked for you now that it was always pretty clear where it was going to go, but now they're showing us explicitly probably where this is going, and it's probably going to go pretty quickly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it does too. You have the arrogant younger wrestler and the older veteran who feels like he should be deserving of respect that he's not getting. And I think it's it's sort of a well-worn pattern that we've seen play out in a number of relationships over the years. I think it has the potential to be halfway decent. I don't know what the Miz could deliver in terms of in the ring at this point in his career. I think he'll be okay, but he's certainly not setting the world on fire. It's just a matter of can they make their rivalry feel intense enough to justify the television time that it's going to consume. And it's one of those. I'm not optimistic about this either, but I'm kind of hopeful. Like, can they make it click? It's a good time potentially to introduce Trick Williams as well. Down the road, because he could be sort of the replacement for the Miz in that, not necessarily in a similar role as a mentor, but as somebody who could be a second for Carmelo, and they could have a bigger impact on whatever show they end up working on together.
Yeah. Another pair who are clashing or there's tension is Humberto within Legado del Fantasma. He was hesitant on the way to the ring to shake hands with Santos Escobar and Angel. Anything stand out there? What have you thought of the story as they're telling it? Where do you think it's heading? I think it's less clear because sometimes WWE hints at things and they kind of change their mind or go a different direction. So where is this heading and what do you think about it?
Well, I've wanted to see all of these guys out on their own for a while now. I think Legado del Fantasma has been sort of a dead end for a while. They don't really have a whole lot going on as a faction. They haven't won any major matches as a crew in a long time. I do see some potential in Berto in particular as somebody who could be a breakout star. He's somebody that is much better on the microphone, and his English skills are strong. And I'd like to see Santos sort of stand out on his own as his own man. He's been in this same sort of pattern for for I guess years now, going well back into NXT, where he's been the leader of a faction. And there was only a brief period on SmackDown where he got to be on his own. So I'd like to see what that looks like for him. He's a gifted guy and really has never gotten the opportunity to get the get that individualized push that everybody was thinking that he would get when he made his way up to the main roster. So I see them, I guess, fracturing at some point in the near future, and then I guess we'll have to see what where the creative tides take them all as time goes on.
It's a weird pairing, but I'm okay with that. It doesn't feel as insulting as the Daniel Bryan Miz original NXT game show version thing, mentor protege type thing. And I was just not super worried about Carmelo. He wasn't going to be like Jacob Fatu, where he just comes in and takes everyone by storm. I mean, if you look at the lay of the land and his spot on the roster, those wrestlers are told, you're getting TV time, make the best of it, have a good attitude backstage, you're talented. We'll find a way to find a portal storyline wise to get you to a higher level if you just do what you're told, smile and do a good job and let your charisma speak for itself. And I think we're on a road to that. I do. I think he's going to be fine. I think Miz is a good person to turn on if they want to move him into that spot. By the way, there's kind of a third thing going on similar, which is Fatu with JC Mateo and Solo. How fast do they need to just do this now?
I would think that's a SummerSlam match, most likely, would be my guess. So I would, I'm trying to remember exactly the timing on SummerSlam, if it's the end of July or early August, but we're probably a couple months away. I guess we'll probably see the Mateo match first. And so that'll probably start, they'll start the fracture of that group in the next couple of weeks. And then by the time we get to SummerSlam, there'll be a full-fledged feud between Fatu and, in his former faction leader. So I would anticipate within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to see some significant movement on that one way or the other.
The chat has brought up multiple times the Mariah May news that she's been taken off the AEW website, heading to WWE. This has been reported for weeks and weeks as something that was going to happen. I don't know if people who were surprised by this missed that, or if I missed some aspect of it that made it seem like there was some chance she wasn't going to go. But any thoughts on that? I mean, it's a she's a star. AEW let her, I don't know. I don't know if they let her go. I don't know the full details, but kind of like Jade Cargill, WWE coveted her, and I think they got word to her that they wanted her to be part of their roster.
I guess it's it's a bridge. Somebody like Mariah May who went and who came over from Stardom, came into AEW, became a very memorable TV character very quickly. Was involved in the best stuff in that women's division throughout her time there. I'm not surprised WWE made an offer, and I guess if the money is right and the promises that they're making are significant, then she can become a star on a much bigger platform, and that's attractive in its own right. And I think there's also the aspects of, I can use this to launch other things that she may be interested in, whether it's acting or anything else that she might be wanting to go into. So I think all the obvious answers apply there, but I see her as being somebody who is polished and ready to go. Like, I hope she's not going to spend significant time in NXT. I think she should debut on the main roster.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I get that. All right. Very good. Anything else you want to add, Jake, before we sign off?
No, I think that's about it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Sounds great. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. We'd love to have you as a VIP member. We'll put those graphics on the screen for you because not only can you get a full VIP membership, but there are options to sign up for just the VIP podcasts. You can get a 7-day free trial through Patreon or Spotify. Just search PWTorch VIP. PWTorch VIP in Spotify or Patreon to get that 7-day free trial to unlock all the ad-free versions of the free shows and the VIP exclusives. You can catch up on our pay-per-view roundtable from last weekend for AEW, and then also Money in the Bank coming up this next weekend. Or you can get a full VIP membership, unlocking access to 35 plus years of archives, a customizable podcast feed that is compatible with Apple Podcasts, our ad-free website, the weekly Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, which features Greg Parks' feature columns from Alan Cunahan and Sean Radican and Rich Fan and me. Check it out. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. I think you can feel good supporting us. We've been doing this decades and decades. If you like our approach on this show, I think you'll like our approach across the board. We have a lot of great niche shows that are part of the VIP podcast lineup. I think 1 or 2 of them will become your favorites, if not all of them. So again, check it out. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you all next time.